Narcissism, what they found now, which is very interesting, is that the people who are narcissists actually have less gray matter in one part of their brain, the part that has empathy. So a narcissist, actually, you can't get mad at them. They're like retarded, basically. Like, you wouldn't get mad if you had a retarded kid. You wouldn't be like, hey, how come you can't play basketball, right? Because it's like they're handicapped. Well, a narcissist has a part of their brain, depending on the level, where something's missing, and it's genetic. Narcissism is extremely genetic. Dr. David Buss, one of my mentors, Harvard professor, wrote the textbook called Evolutionary Psychology. He said narcissism and psychopathy, which is being a psychopath, I don't know how, I don't think that's genetic, but narcissism, meet people's parents. Whenever I meet somebody that's a narcissist, I'm like, I literally go, is your mom or dad a narcissist? And the worst is when they go, oh yeah, both of them are worse than me. Then you're like, oh my God, do not have a kid with that person. That thing will pass right down through your children. Machiavellianism is a different trait that's not, it's called the dark triad. Machiavellian traits are not really genetic. They're more from upbringing, if you were bullied, things like that. And then being psychopath is like a random mutation, I think. That's why a lot of serial killers had nice parents who were normal, who didn't abuse their kids, like Ted Bundy, or I forget which. A lot of these crazy psychopaths were not really born psychopaths. Someone said narcissism is very environmental. Probably not, according to some of the world expert scientists that are my personal consultants. I pay them every month. Dr. Buss, one of them, and it's not very genetic. Narcissism at all. In fact, I mean, it's not very environmental. He says it's just bad science. For example, so people go, oh, the reason that kid's a narcissist is because his mom and dad was a narcissist, so they trained their kid to be a narcissist. No, you got it backwards. The mom and dad were narcissists and therefore passed it right through the genes. No, narcissism, now nothing has 100%, correlation with your parents. I don't think, even height is not 100%. The most correlated parts of DNA, of your genetic makeup are things like skin color, eye color. Very few black people with blue eyes. Lots of red hair people with blue eyes. It's just like a genetic, it's correlated. And there's very few, black people that have red-headed children. And it's that if you take out being an albino. And there's very few, blonde hair Swedish people that have black children, okay? Unless the mom, was on Tinder or something like that. Went to Peckers and was on Tinder. So people, it's funny, you can tell people that about genetics, and they're like, of course your height, like Brad's tall, your dad's tall. Yeah. Shaquille O'Neal, these people, I have a friend who's 7'2". His name's Chris, and he weighs like 490 pounds. He used to be a head bouncer at one of my nightclubs in North Carolina that I had. I once said, I was like, is anyone in your family tall? He's like, no, they're not that tall. He's like, my dad's only like 6'6". My grandpa was only 6'9". I'm like, yeah, but in the real world, where everybody ain't 7'2" like you. He's like, my mom's only like 5'11". I mean, yeah. So if that's genetic, hair color, eye color, height, don't you think the other things would be genetic, but you just can't see them? Like anger is very genetic. Someone with a short temper, boy, my dad has a super short temper, and I have had to work on my temper. One time my dad went to prison for a long time, which also makes your temper even more temperamental. My dad's from right there, Harlem. At the end of it's funny, now I live on the other side of Central Park is Harlem. And my dad was born in Harlem when it was not like a nice place, and it was not, Bill Clinton didn't have his office there. It was rough. But my dad, these kind of people with tempers. Now that's correlated to being a psychopath. The definition of a psychopath is very low fear, by the way. That's why if you ever like road rage and you realize a person is a psychopath, you can't threaten a psychopath. You can't. They're immune to threatening. That's like one of the clinical tests of a psychopath. So if you go to a psychopath, you're like, if you cut me off one more time, I'm gonna beat your ass. In fact, psychopaths, when they shoot gunshots off in the air, psychopaths' heartbeat goes down and they sweat less. That's why about 80% of Navy SEALs are clinical psychopaths, because you want a psychopath. When they dropped into Osama bin Laden to kill him, and there was like women coming out and children, you didn't want somebody who's like, oh, there's children, like I feel so bad. You just want like, they were just dropping little beads one by one until they got to Osama bin Laden. So do not have a psychopath business partner. Yeah. And there's a lot more narcissists than psychopath. One thing to know, women are basically never psychopaths. So if you have a female business partner, you dramatically decrease the chance you will get a psychopath. Of the last 1,000 serial killers in history, there's like 4 women, 996 men.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when men call women psychos, I'm like, you're using the wrong word. The clinical word would be more like women, like what men usually mean is more like dramatic or overly sensitive or Machiavellian. Women can have Machiavellian traits. Tai, are you a narcissist? When I do a narcissist quiz like the MPI or some of those, I'm not really a narcissist. People think I'm a narcissist because I go on social media, but I have there's people with lower narcissism than me, but I don't have crazy. Here's a good way to know somebody has high narcissism. They'll never apologize. Like you tell them, you're like, bro, you were wrong. Like you said, meet me at 5 o'clock, and then they show up at 7, and you're like, see the text? Yeah. You said 5, and they'll just like excuse it away, like, well, I didn't even mean to send that. That's such a quick way to tell a narcissist. Inability to apologize. So I don't have that. Also, narcissism has 7 facets, technically. So you have authority, superiority, exploitativeness, vanity, and even self-sufficiency is a form of narcissism.